Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to our first youth town hall virtual conversation with young people regarding what their vision for the future of New York City is and what we want for our city and what we want for our communities as well. Today's conversation is going to be a conversation in which we digest and discuss a variety of topics. And for all of them, for each of them, young people are going to be sharing their thoughts and words. But before we begin, we are going to hear some words from Simone, one of the facilitators of the Liberation Program. I'm Marsha. I'm the coordinator and lead organizer, and Simone is going to take us away. Thank you.
Thank you, Marsha. Welcome, everyone. Once again, my name is Simone. Pronouns are she, her, he, him, they, them. So welcome to our live event, Youth Vision for the Future of New York City, a conversation with youth organizers and activists from the Brotherhood Sister Soul. Here you will hear our brilliant young people speak about their vision for the future of our city and discuss a range of topics that range from divesting from the police, the realities of COVID-19, school reopenings, and so much more. We at the Brotherhood Sister Soul are so excited to have you with us today. These are the spaces we desperately need when imagining and eventually creating a new normal, a new world, a new definition of a liberated society. And it only makes sense that we center the voices of the youth in this conversation. Young people have always been at the forefront of revolution. Youth have always been the leaders around fighting for a world rid of oppression and full of new promise and freedom. They do this with little fear or in spite of it, with bold ideas, grounded in unlearning and the internalized oppressions of the generation before. Young people are most directly impacted by systemic oppression, so will ultimately have the most impactful solutions to the issues of our time. I'm excited to listen to the ideas of what an inclusive and liberated future looks like to the young people who are mindful of the intersections of how identity and oppression play a role in this fight. They will always make sure the marginalized becomes the center because they have been made marginal for so long and their fight is in resistance to this. We can no longer be comfortable with the narrative that the young people are the future. Young people are the now, they are the present, they are the truth and the vision of power. So I welcome you into this space to listen to the heartbeat of the movement, the young people. Let's vision together and thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you. And thank you to our folks on this call with us who are going to share their brilliance and their words and their ideas. Young people are the heartbeat of the movement. Thank you, Jill the Gem, for that gem. And let's dive in. So folks on this call, please share with our audience, what is your name? Where are your people from? And what is your vision for liberation? And let's start with Firdaz.
Thank you. My name is Firdaz, gender pronouns she, her, hers. My people are from everywhere oppressed people are from. And also Togo, West Africa, where my parents are from. So shout out West Africa, Togo. And my vision for liberation is one where young people's voices are taken seriously, where young women and femmes are safe, where gender diverse people are safe, where people of color don't live in a constant state of fear, and can able to rest and live wholesome lives, instead of just dodging and being afraid of the state-sanctioned violence that happens in our communities. So my vision is safety, and I will pass it on to Heaven.
Thank you, Firdaz. Grand Risings, everyone. My name is Heaven, and my people are from all over the world, just mostly New York City, which I'm very happy about. Rep in New York. So liberation to me looks like being able to wake up and not having to think about all the oppression we have endured, and not having to go to bed feeling relieved that me and my loved ones wasn't personally targeted today by what their system does, but feeling sad for those who are, and having to think about what tomorrow could possibly bring. And I'm gonna pivot to Fode.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Fode. My people are from the Earth, um, the Mande region, aka West Africa, and Harlem, New York, NYC repping. To me, liberation is a world where human beings aren't responsible for other human beings suffering, and end to the injustices that have persist for centuries, and freedom for folks to be as they wish, um, regardless of their identity. Um, I believe that liberation is an end to the oppression and degradation of our brothers and sisters that have persisted, and that we've experienced for too long, just for being. And yeah, and I'm gonna pass it off to Janelle.
Thank you, Fode. My name is Janelle. Good morning. My people are from everywhere. Specifically, my parents are from the Dominican Republic and Cuba. And my vision for liberation looks like a place where sisters are being put at the center and where the binary is being broken. It looks like a world where there are no longer temporary fixes. It looks like a complete new system because the systems we have now need deep structural change. This is a system with no patriarchy, racism, colorism, misogyny. The list goes on. Capitalism. Liberation to me essentially looks like people coming together, communities coming together, people loving, protecting, and supporting one another. Yeah, so my liberation is rooted in love, and it's rooted in change, and it's rooted in support. And I'll pass it on to Maya.
Thank you, Janelle. Good morning. My name is Maya, and my people are from the Dominican Republic. My vision for liberation is to create a world where people are able to walk through the streets without worrying about what people might say to or do to them based on what they look like. My vision is to make a world where Black Lives Matter, a world where trans folks aren't killed for being their true selves, and a world where women actually have the rights they deserve. And I'll pass it on to Gisela.
Thank you, Maya. My name is Gisela. My pronouns are she, her, hers, they, them. My people are from everywhere, specifically from the Dominican Republic and Harlem. And like everyone else said, my vision for liberation is a world where we don't prioritize policing, a world where we invest in people over profit, and a world where education is a norm instead of incarceration. Like Fannie Lou Hamer said, nobody's free until everybody's free. And I'm gonna pass it to Tita.
Hi, my name is Tita, GP Sheha. I am from the Gambia. My people are from the Gambia. My vision for liberation is for the ending of police brutality and for people to embrace who they are. A lot of time, like people have to choose like who they want to be and who society want them to be. So my vision for liberation is for everybody to be free and be themselves. Now I'll pass it to Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole. My people are from New York and Dominican Republic, and my vision for liberation is a place where there is no more discrimination and judgment against people because of who they are or the color of their skin, and just working towards reducing the injustices that happen in our world and shouldn't be happening anymore. And I'll pass it on to Brenda.
Good morning. My name is Brandel, GP he, him. My people from everywhere, most especially Harlem. And when I think of liberation, liberation to me is where everyone is being treated fairly and equally. Everyone has justice and everyone fights for each other no matter how they identify. And I'm gonna pass it on to Abe.
So good afternoon, y'all. It's great to see y'all be together. My name is Abe, and pronouns are they, them. And my people are from all over this green planet. Many are from the Caribbean, from Quisqueya, Haiti, also from Borinquen, and many other are from West and North Africa, and from the indigenous peoples in the Americas and also in the Caribbean. And my vision for liberation is to work collectively with all of y'all to, in the words of Paulo Freire, just leave the world a tiny little bit better than the one that we were born in. And with that, I'm gonna pass it to Brandel. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Brandel already went. Let me get a hand in the to Chantel. Chantel Cheyenne. My apologies.
Hi everyone, I'm Cheyenne. My people are from everywhere, most closely the Caribbean, so Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and the Bronx. Not in the Caribbean, but in New York. And my vision for liberation looks like people being able, or not having what they need to survive, but also to thrive. And also when those who are most oppressed are free, because once those who are most oppressed are free, then all of us are going to be liberated, and just people not having to fear no matter what they identify as. Yeah, and I'll pass it to Simone.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Simone. I use all pronouns, she, her, he, him, they, them. My people are from Trinidad and also down south, Mobile, Alabama, and New York City. So I love that I'm part of this diaspora. What liberation looks like to me is being able to feel safe in our bodies, where the lives of all Black women are centered, where we say her name, a place where we can say our truth, even when it's critical, the destruction of binaries and boxes, and ultimately a decolonized world. And I'm gonna throw it to France.
Peace and blessings, y'all. My name is France, GP, he, him, and my folks are from everywhere, but the story of my blood is from Byhalia, Mississippi, and Quisqueya, Haiti, DR. Blessed to be here, and my vision for liberation is very simply a world not run by fear.
Word. Thank you to the crew who's going to be rocking with us this morning. I am the last to do this introduction. Marsha, she, her, hers. My people are from IUT and also throughout the diaspora, because my people are my people, if you know what I mean. And also down and rocking with and fighting for all marginalized people. And therefore my vision for liberation is one, like Janelle said, thank you, Janelle, centered and guided by love, and that radically uproots all the systems of oppression that currently exist and replaces them with systems of consensus, of love, guided by human-centered everything. So completely drastically different from what we have right now, and built by the marginalized, aim to liberate all. So now you know what we're fighting for. Let's talk about what we want to shift right now. And the first thing that we want to talk about is who gets to sit at this table, at decision-making tables, and who gets to sit and make decisions for others, and shifting that from the beginning. So my question to the crew is, why do you believe it's important for youth to be at the table when discussing and planning the future of New York City? Maya, you want to start us off, please?
Thank you. I believe that it's important that you sit at the table when discussing and planning the future of New York City, because I think the youth have voices and ideas and solutions that should be heard. People must listen to these solutions and ideas, because the youth are the ones experiencing how the city is being run, and we also have ideas to make the city better.
I think the youth should be at the table because the youth are the future of New York City, and we're molding the world for the people who are to come, which is this incoming generation of youth. And the youth are the next inflow of people who are going to be voting, or who are voting this year. They're going to be the next doctors and teachers. So why shouldn't they be at the table making a decision in things that are going to directly impact them and change their lives, either for the better or possibly for the worse?
Thank you, Maya. Heaven, you want to talk?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, definitely is very important for the youth to be at the table, for us to be at the table, because although those decisions will affect us in the future, those decisions are affecting us now because we're right in this moment today. So I feel like personally, with all the decisions that they have already, and even before these decisions are made, we're even more in danger and impacted, because they're trying to envision what we need without even having to live that life or getting insight from people that haven't been through what we've been through. So I think it's very important that we are the ones at the table discussing the future of our lives, and more importantly, right now.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I wanted to add the youth we're creative, and we have many new ideas to add. It's very important to invest in youth and engage them in negotiating and decision-making process, but more so like making sure that this is full and effective, because if we're not getting youth from all intersecting identities, it's not going to be accessible to us. So we need to include young people with disabilities, young people who are indigenous, black and brown youth, non-citizen youth, LGBTQA youth. We need to include all these identities to make sure that youth participation is effective.
Thank you, Janelle. Include all identities at the table to make sure that the solutions that come from the table are effective. Wanted to echo that so we can also begin listening to the things that are said. To pivot to the next question, there's this popular narrative that I know that we disagree with, but there's this popular narrative that police keep us safe. But youth throughout the nation are demanding divestment from police and policing culture, both of them, police and policing culture. Why are you all calling for divestment, and what does divestment look like for you? Fode, you want to start us off?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Marsha. The notion that police help keep us safe is propaganda from the media and also from the folks that individuals that want to maintain the social order and the power structure that surrounds us. And it's false. It's just not true. It's a false narrative. We're calling for divestment from the NYPD because historically and to this day, police have been terrorizing our communities, especially our youth and just our whole community. And we believe that our tax dollars should not be used to fund terrorists. We believe that our tax dollars should be used to fund more beneficial things for our community, including community development organizations such as the Brotherhood Sister Soul, public areas such as the parks where we hang out at, where to play, housing, food insecurities. There's a lot of issues that the money can be invested into instead of keep on funding the police who continue to terrorize our streets. So that is why we're calling for a divestment from the NYPD.
Yes, I completely agree. I think the notion that police keep us safe is most certainly a myth. For one, I think a lot of Black and brown children are terrified of the police because they see the police in their communities so heavily and arresting and criminalizing and killing the people who look like them. And so I think just to talk more about where the money should be put into, I think it should be put into schools because this is where children or youth are most of the time. This is where we are the most of our lives and we are impacted the most. For one, I think that we need to take police officers outside of schools because if we have that policing cultures in our communities, we certainly don't want it in our schools. Also, we want more resources. We want more AP classes. We want more extracurricular activities. The youth are so talented. We're very creative. And the issue is that we don't have the spaces to hone in on those talents. And if we had that in our schools, that would be amazing. Also, we need mental health support in our schools. Again, we're in schools all the time and we have more counselors. We have less counselors than we have police officers in our schools. And again, we're coming from oppressed communities where we need that mental health support to undo that trauma and talk about it. I think Black and brown students don't even know what that means to undo that trauma and that we should be doing that now, starting from the youth. Also, Black and brown students are also not seen a lot of times. They're also looked at as numbers in their schools. And if they're looked at as human beings, and if they're given the time, if teachers are given the time and the resources to be able to teach students in the way that they need to be taught, students would be so much more successful if they had lessons that their people were in. If the lessons were culturally responsive, then they would know that they also can fight for liberation because they've seen their people do it. And so I think that the money should not be put into policing, but it should be put into our youth and our schools.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both Cheyenne and Fode. I believe like the money that's going to the NYPD should be invested in schools because like a lot of schools lack the resources needed to support students. Like some schools like they don't have enough Chromebooks like to help the students, and we have to go to other classes to get their Chromebooks. Some I know in my school like our bathroom are not like in a good way because like we only have like one bathroom for both boys and girls to use, and we have a specific time for uh both boys and girls to use. So I feel like those money should be invested like in the schools so that like we can have like better bathrooms like with doors and locks, with soaps and with tissues because we need that in schools. And also like similar to what Cheyenne said, um we need more student support staff, like we need guiding counselors, we need therapists because like with schools like we are overloaded with a lot of assignments and it can be overwhelming sometimes. Like we stay up for hours to do our homework, to do our assignments, and I feel like that's a lot on like we the students. So yeah, we definitely need those funds to be invested in schools.
To add on to what my colleagues were saying, I definitely agree. We all agree that many people think police keep us safe, but in many situations, they make it actually unsafe and quite dangerous for us. We call for divestment of the NYPD. That looks like some of the funding from the NYPD coming back into our communities. The funding that would be coming into our community goes towards the parks that have paint chips where the playground equipment and the benches are chipping of paint, where the lack of youth centers in our communities, the lack of jobs that our youth can get in our communities. But the second something happens, the first thing the NYPD wants to do is lock us up. So we're calling for divestment so we can be able to prevent things like that from happening. There's people without food, people without shelter, and there's so many more things that our communities could do with the funding of if the NYPD was divested. Our community can do so much if the funding from the NYPD was divested into us.
All right, so just to want to thank y'all for that and for the courage to say that. I think a lot of people are nervous about calling for divestment, and with young people is also where we find strength and where we find fortitude to move for and call for the things that we need. And young people have always been a part of social movements. So let's keep pushing, let's keep fighting, and let's keep listening to be adults. So just pivot to COVID, right? COVID-19. This is our city. This is what we're navigating. It's a pandemic. We know that COVID-19 has unduly impacted New York City, especially communities of color. Given citywide shelter-in-place orders or closings overall, we also know there will be a prolonged negative impact to our economy. Knowing this, do you think it's okay that our city elected officials did not divest more from the NYPD? Firdaz, can you kick us off?
Thank you for that wonderful question, Marcia. And no, it is absolutely not okay that our elected city officials have not divested more from the NYPD. So speaking about COVID-19, our communities of color, low-income communities of color, were hit horribly by this pandemic. So now folks are struggling even more to pay rent and groceries. So the issues of food insecurity and housing insecurity already existed because of just like the socioeconomic disparities and just like our segregated communities and just not making enough money. So COVID-19 just exacerbated that. So the fact that we are not addressing that at this moment is just beyond disrespectful and neglect. It is neglect. And just speaking about cops, on top of the violence that we face at the hands of police. So police are using excessive force. They are often sites and people who perpetuate sexual violence and misconduct. So police officers as people who surveil our communities, and the outcome and implication of surveillance leads to incarceration or deportation and criminalizing young Black and brown folks in our communities. So not divesting from the police is actually supporting these issues that the police put onto us, and neglecting the issues of rent and groceries. There are nurses at public hospitals who have received just gift baskets, who are not getting a financial, mental, emotional support, but police officers are time and time again, getting the most financial support from our elected officials. So just thinking about like where our morality and where our morals are prioritized, and it's not in the hands of people who are literally saving our lives, but the people doing harm to us. So for elected officials to not divest from the NYPD is acting against the interests and well-being of our communities.
Thank you.
Yes, just to add on to Fardaz, who so eloquently answered the question, I just wanted to say that it's definitely not okay that our city officials did not divest from the NYPD, because first off, the city officials are supposed to be helping the community and supposed to be listening to the community. And if they have been listening to the communities, they would have heard our youth in the streets yelling, defund the police. And this is a clear example of how they ignore us, and they go against the community, and that is the issue. Just like what Fardaz was saying, they are feeding into all of the problems and all the issues that are against our communities, and this is the problem, and we have to speak up about it now.
Yeah, 40 and Fidels are definitely right. I feel like city officials are showing like they care more about policing than our own education. Like they could have like there are some teachers out there who are not getting enough paid, and like it's frustrating because like you working like for hours and hours and you getting less paid paycheck every single month. So I feel like investing more into the schools, investing more into like the communities will help everyone rather than like putting money in like unnecessary like technologies, unnecessary weapons that are like constantly putting us the students in prison, like, and they're saying like, oh, it's because the students are bad, it's because they are like this and like this. So like invest in us, invest in programs that can help us like to like build up more and like get more opportunities like that.
Thank you, Tita and Fody. Brenda, you were going to speak.
Yes. To add on to what everyone said, I think I speak for almost all of us when we say we don't think it's okay that our city elected officials have not defunded and divested enough from the NYPD. As you all know, COVID hit the world hard, but the police funding is still at a high. Many people, many families have little to no source of income or resources while having a family to provide for. While there are some families who did get a $1,200 stimulus check in the beginning of the pandemic, majority of those families had to decide between paying their rent or to buying food, needs, and necessities for their households. Yet the NYPD funding is still at a high. There are many people who have no money or have no insurance to pay for medication or aid to help them if they got sick. Yet the NYPD funding is still at a high. The government told us to quarantine. And yeah, if you were to go outside, you will see many homeless people surrounded. We were told to quarantine, yet they had no place to quarantine. Yet the NYPD funding is still at a high. So when we're calling for divestment, we're calling for our city elected officials to get a housing for people who are homeless, helping people who need aid, who are getting sick and who don't have, helping the families who, okay, they either cut from their job or the job is not bringing up as much money as they should be or that they used to be, helping them so they can be able to provide for their family. Yet they're worried about the NYPD, and the NYPD funding is still at a high. The community, our community, as Black and Brown and Latinx people, we could have done so much more if the NYPD funding was divested and back to our community.
Thank you, Brenda. And Cheyenne, you want to close us out on this question, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I think, well, just speaking to what all of my peers said, I think that it makes absolutely no sense that they would divest not as much from the NYPD, basically. Well, for one, we have already been oppressed before the pandemic hit. And so again, this just really took a toll even harder. So it doesn't make sense to not put more funds into these communities. And I just think that, again, like, people are homeless now. People don't have food. People can't eat. People can't support their families. And yet there's still money, billions of dollars being put into the NYPD to police and criminalize these same people, which only just reinforces the system already. And again, just speaking back to the point that Fodi said, this is something that we want. The elected officials are supposed to be our voices, and yet they aren't listening to what we're saying. We are literally in the streets protesting for divestment of the police. We've been doing this now for months. So I don't understand why we've yet to have the divestment that we're asking for. It's really frustrating and it's highly confusing. But I think what I'm asking for, and I think all of us are asking for, is just for them to actually listen to us and do what we're constantly saying. This is not the first town hall meeting that we've ever had as youth. And so it's like listening to the things that we're saying and the things that we're calling for in the streets. Stop criminalizing us, stop killing us, and give us the resources that we need in order to make our communities stronger so that we won't have to have the police in our communities as much as you think we do, because we don't. But I think that's, yeah.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Clearly what young people are asking for is a divest, invest strategy. If you divest from terrorizing our communities, you can invest in repairing and transforming our communities to be that which they should have been from the beginning. And only if you do one can you do the other. And there are all these other ways that we can talk through what else you can invest in when you divest from the NYPD. Next question, also regarding COVID. So COVID-19 protocols, social distancing and all that is, and specifically the policing of social distancing and the overall criminalization of young people, especially Black and Brown youth. Here we are again. Do y'all have any concerns about that? Do y'all have any concerns about the ways that young Black and Brown young people who are historically and contemporaneously criminalized are also policed regarding proper social distancing? Tisala, you want to start us off?
Marsha, thank you. Okay, so regarding COVID-19, one of my biggest concerns is that, so like everyone knows, a lot of college campuses have their own police force. My school has public safety, still work with the police department. So to be because of COVID-19, school public safety is going to be on campus more than ever. And safety for too many means policing, surveillance, and other tactics that make us feel unsafe, monitoring us, and a lot more than they did prior to COVID. So before COVID, they were not around as much. And now because of COVID and social distancing, they're going to be around a lot more to make sure that we're following the social distancing rules. Well, that's not going to ensure our safety. But since I do go to school upstate, the reality is that the students of color are always the ones targeted the most, even before social distancing, or the ones who get in trouble for being too loud, or the ones who supposedly don't know how to act. Imagine what it's going to look like now. They'll be on our backs, finding any way to criminalize us and get us caught, any way to basically write us up, and any way to punish us for our simple being. My biggest concern is Black and Brown youth are taking the opportunity to go back to school to change their environment, or just to simply go back to school to focus, and it'll end up us getting written up or even having public safety knocking at our doors. This is not only making us feel physically unsafe, but also mentally and emotionally unsafe.
Thank you, Sana.
I have many concerns regarding COVID-19 and the policing around it. Our communities have been disproportionately testing for the virus since that has began, and it's because our communities are the most vulnerable. We're testing more positive than other communities. We're dying at double the rate, and this is connected to environmental racism and economic inequality. It's directly impacting us, and it's for a reason. And because of this, it's created conditions that make us unable to social distance. So for example, we live in places that we have overcrowding. So we have housing instability where service workers have the inability to social distance. And it becomes very hard to social distance when our community relies on public transit, and then we live in overcrowded apartment buildings where I know I live with a lot of family members, and a lot of us are caregivers for younger family members in our families, and for older family members too, who are more at risk for the virus. Um, so with these pre-vulnerabilities, it creates a huge problem because a lot of the small businesses in my communities specifically have been going out of business because of it. And because they have to pay money to get licenses and to pay rent for these, to put up their business, they're not able to do this because they lost their job, so they lost the money to do this. And then the police in my communities are literally kicking them off the street for trying to make a living and trying to make money for their families. And this is something that is huge, like in my community, where we have street vendors and we have people hustling to make money for their families. So it's a huge concern because this is also causing, it's a huge shift for youth and for the children in these families that have to just go through the consequences of that. And in my community, like, I don't see a lot of medical supplies being given out, which is something that we need. Like when I go out in the street, I don't see people with masks on, and that's because we are not being exposed to these resources. And then we have testing centers, but are they really being effective? Are they accessible to these people? Are they being do people even know that the testing centers are here? So who's really putting out that information? Because the police sure aren't, and they are surveilling our communities and making sure that we keep a mask on. But where are we supposed to be getting these masks with the high prices too? So this is things that are very concerning and are concerning. Like when Black and Brown students return to schools, we're being put at even a higher risk to contract the virus. And it's horrible. And I'm very concerned about what that's going to look like with the school year starting.
Thank you, Janelle.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Brody.
Yeah, just to add on, I wanted to say, like, as a young Black man growing up in New York City, I learned to understand that the NYPD views us as like target practice. They prey on us to boost their egos and their paychecks. And when I say us, I mean Black and Brown youth, Black and Brown and Latinx, men and women, boys and girls, just people in general. And I also believe that with the precautions with COVID, and us like requiring the requirements for us to wear masks, these are new prompts for the NYPD on their objectives. And it's a new way to, fill in their quotas. It's a new way for them to target us. It's like a new target on our backs, on top of us being Black and Brown Latinx individuals. So this is an issue, and this is one of my concerns, because I feel like now targeting for them is going to get 10 times easier, right? They will now illegally search you as they ask you for your mask, So it's issues like this that I'm worried about and concerned about.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are many, many, many concerns when it comes to COVID-19 protocols. And like Fody said, I really, really, really do believe it feels like there's a new target on our back, because if we were already just being heavily watched and targeted and criminalized before this, and now you add a mask to it, and if you don't have it, it's a problem. And if you do have it in your certain places, it's still a problem. And at the end, it's just still feel like at the end of the day, like we're fucked in a way. Like, it's not that there's nothing we can't do, but like that's what they make us feel like. And when Janelle said resources, like, yo, they say we need to have a mask, but it's not being provided. And the crazy thing is, masks can be expensive because you don't know what like people's situations are. And when you go in other certain areas, there is masks being given out, but when you come uptown, it's like, oh, you have to have a mask. You don't have a mask, you can't come in. And if you try to buy the mask, like it's $4 or $5, like things like that. And people cannot afford that. I can't afford to be personally buying masks every time, and they're easy to lose. So it's just like, how many times am I going to keep putting money that I don't have to something that y'all want me to wear? That is very, very, very concerning to me. And in this area that I live in, I live 2 blocks away from the precinct. So the cops is always in the area circling and just like walking around asking questions. And they're not even social distancing themselves, because I always see them like bothering people and like searching people, like it's always something. I feel like ever since COVID, like it's been a lot more stronger of them like targeting people. So I really do feel like there's a target on our backs when it comes to COVID-19. And I'm so concerned with what's more to come, because they're talking about another wave. And if this is how the first wave went, like I can only imagine. And then another thing that just came to my mind was when quarantine first happened, the supermarkets were saying that they wasn't taking EBT, and how like, just how crazy is that? Like during a whole pandemic, like y'all are saying y'all are not taking EBT, which is more needed now than ever, because there are families that aren't working. So I'm not getting a check, nor am I getting my food stamps now. So like, what is me and my family gonna eat? And it was one point in time, like I was like really worried. Like there was a lot of people in my community not eating, which came to like, it came for everyone to do some organizing, because silently at that, it started with someone leaving a box full of uncooked pasta, rice, and things like that. And then from there, everyone would just put food in the box that they wouldn't eat for other people to take, because it really seemed like everyone in my neighborhood like was not eating, wasn't either eating or eating enough. So it's just like things like that. Like I'm very worried. In the testing centers, the nearest testing center literally is in the supermarket. It's in Pioneer. And I think that is such a problem, because you're testing people for a sickness where we are buying the food we're going to be eating. I think that is really a problem. It's just like when you go to other communities, like they have their own testing centers. So to see that it's literally in my supermarket where I have to go and buy food for my family is a problem. And that's how the virus can just be spread and things like that. But I'm very concerned when it comes to COVID-19 protocols.
Thank you, Heaven. Thank you, Fode. Thank you, Hisela, Janelle, as well, for your answers. And thank you all for your energy and just being honest about like the concerns that folks have regarding how our city is navigating this, and the ways that we continue to be criminalized while also targeted, while also being put in positions to be in situations of precarity regarding who is most harmfully impacted by this pandemic. Yes, everybody is impacted, but there are communities that are more impacted than others, and ours are those communities. To pivot to another topic that is of concern, and also that is something that we all need to come together to craft solutions around, we're gonna talk a little bit more about school reopening. And so the question to the crew right now is like, what should schools prepare for in the fall so as to truly support students and their various needs? And again, the question is, what should schools prepare for in the fall so as to truly support students and their various needs? And we're going to start off with Maya.
Thank you, Marsha. I think schools should prepare for the fall by making sure that students are both mentally and physically safe, whether students are attending school physically or not. We are still trying to learn through a pandemic, and having to focus on getting the grades people want us to get, having to help our family in new ways, having to sometimes teach ourselves, and also worrying about keeping ourselves safe is a lot to navigate through this pandemic.
Yeah, I agree, especially, well, everything you said, Maya. And for me, as a college student, I would say what I need most from my school is to have more mental health support. And what that looks like is having remote mental health check-ins, or mental health, or having counseling through mental health. Like I know for me, my school, our health insurance or our health resources is about $2,000. And so for those who are not living on campus, they should still be able to have access to those resources. I know for me, during my last semester of school, I was in a very low state mentally, and during finals, because I had to do so many papers at once that I couldn't even process the fact that I was in the middle of a pandemic. Also, just to be aware that students are going to show up differently, and what that looks like is not going to be the same for what it used to look like. And also, like, like for instance, I am now probably going to be a homeschool teacher to my 11-year-old sister because my mom still has to work and she's doing remote learning. And so it's like, not only do I have to worry about the school that my work, but I also have to make sure that my sister is doing the work that she needs to do and have to explain the things that she needs. So I think just keeping that in mind, that yeah, we need more than just, I don't know, and maybe it looks like a form being sent out to every student asking them what they need mentally or what they need in general so that they know how they can support us. But going the extra mile, doing the work to make sure that we are okay.
Thank you so much for that, Cheyenne. Completely echoing everything that was said. What schools should prepare for to support students. I'm a CUNY student, and in CUNY, like a significant population of the student body are low-income people of color, young people of color. So one, schools should give students funds on a regular basis for rent, for book money, for groceries, and provide mental health for us during these challenging times. Seeing that it is our communities that have been especially devastated by one, COVID-19, and two, state neglect. So just not having our needs met, not divesting from the NYPD and investing into the communities where a lot of CUNY students come from. Another point talking about like tuition and budget, because of the budget cuts to not the NYPD, but to educational opportunity programs, a lot of students could not even return to school for the fall semester. So schools should meet that need and like fill that gap. So that would be like providing tuition. Another thing is paying all staff members, like a lot of staff members, community staff members of color, and a part of departments seen as unessential, so like the arts, women's studies, Black studies. A lot of these departments lost staff. So what would that mean? It would be like hiring these people back and just paying these people's for their livelihoods, and also looking at service workers, how they have been let go because of transitioning into online schooling, but they still need support at the end of the day. They're still CUNY staff, so just supporting them in all the ways that they need to survive. And online classes, since a lot of us are transitioning into online classes, our tuition should not be that of in-person learning. So making our tuition mirror the actual education that we're getting and be appropriate to the actual education that we're receiving. So yeah, that's something that schools and administration must do for supporting our needs.
Thank you, Maya, Cheyenne, and Firdaz. Anybody else want to answer this question?
Yeah. I think first of all, what they should have done is like make a nationwide survey, like to ask students whether they prefer in-school learning or online learning, because like not everyone want in school and not everyone want remote learning. So they should have done that. And also like schools have been sending out emails that students should come 2 days of in school and 2 days of remote learning, and like I feel like those days are not gonna be helpful because like there are parents who have to go to work on certain days. So how are they going to be able to take their young ones, like their children, to schools and the same as like going to work? So it's kind of like it's like conflict like between the parents and their children, and also between us too, because like we also have our own personal life. We also have activities that we are doing. So it's like some days that might work for teachers may not work for us. So I think like at first they should have made the survey, and also like if we are going for in schools too, like they should provide more masks, more hand sanitizer, because like this, like Cheyenne and Janelle mentioned before, like and Heaven, not everybody can provide their own masks, and masks is too expensive for everybody to be buying like constantly. So I think like I believe like schools should prepare like for buying more masks, more hand sanitizer, and also to clean the school building, especially the bathroom, like constantly. Like yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody said, and I just wanted to add on real quick that schools should focus on schools that are reopening during this time should focus on development and supporting students and the families and the community where they stand, as opposed to stressing students and families in the community. Because I remember, like, I know even I spoke to like an 8-year-old the other day, and I asked him, like, how does he feel about school? And the first thing he said was that it's hard because of the test. Like, that's not what school should be about. It shouldn't be about us being stressed, worrying about whether we're going to graduate because of a test, or we have to like study countless hours, like Tita was saying earlier, having to stay up all night. That should not be the focus, especially not in this time. It should be making sure that students' mental health and physical health is up the charts. Basically, everyone is okay. Making sure that they reach out to family members in the community, because they are a part of the community, and making sure that everybody has what they need in order, because they have the funding. They have the funding. Well, some schools have the funding, and that's what they should emphasize, put their emphasis on.
Okay, Marsha.
You got
Okay.
it.
Okay. So back to like the very first question, I'm thinking about cops wanting to enforce social distancing, but they don't social distance, nor do they wear a mask, but they want everyone around them to wear masks. That's one. And with my school, thinking about it right now, they have wanted, today is the day to make a decision for students to figure out what they want to do for the fall time. And then it's like, y'all sent a 36-page plan yesterday. So how am I supposed to make a decision based on what you sent yesterday? A 36-page plan yesterday. And they want us to make a decision by today. But I think also that schools need to prepare for the amount of students that are not going to show up, because they learned that their health is a lot more important than feeding into our schools' capitalist ways. This country has showed us in various ways that they care more about the economic status of this country than it does of people's lives. How we have no indoor dining until 2021, but schools are reopening. Somebody please make it make sense, because I'm not understanding. And schools need to prepare for the toll that this will have on students and prepare for offering additional resources for mental health support. And if they would have divested from the NYPD and were to fund schools, they would have invested in social workers, psychologists, counselors, therapists, and instead of looking for outside resources. They also have to prepare for the fact that some students don't have access to the computer or internet in itself, and be able to provide them with technology to make sure they're getting the education they need and deserve. But teachers and staff will also need to be there for the students, not only as teachers and staffs, but as people who actually care. Ask them what they need from you in order to continue school even through a pandemic. But overall, schools need to prepare to make sure the students are good mentally, physically, and emotionally.
Thank you, Salam.
Yeah,
thank you. I'm going to pivot to the next question, Heaven, because I know you're also on the next question. So feel free to chime in first and answer both questions. Regarding COVID-19 protocols, what measures are your schools taking that you disagree with? Heaven, you can start us off.
Okay, thank you, Marsha. So yes, from what Gisela was saying, like, first of all, being in quarantine, like, we've been in quarantine for a long time, and with COVID is very, very, very scary. So having to go back to school, I can only imagine being in school in person. I can only imagine what those people are feeling like, because like I don't want to be in school with my people. That's why I said I'll do it online. But yeah, I really do not agree with, before, when the conversation was first being had about them reopening the schools, there was this newscasting on Fox about how students that are non-white gonna go back to school first, and then after it would be kids that are white, they'll go to school after they go back first. And that was very alarming to me, like very, very alarming, because one, I have 8 siblings that are Black and brown. They are non-white, and yeah, of course, I know Fox is like, sorry, I know it's sus, but I was just saying, like, when I first seen that, I just thought it was very alarming, because like my siblings have to go back to school, and I don't want to have that on my mind, that they're being used as test subjects. I really do not want to have that on my mind. And I really do not agree with the fact that now that they came up with the decision of what's going to happen when the kids go back to school, that they only go back to school 2 times out of the week. So I think that's very inconvenient for my mom, because my mom cannot call her boss and let them know, oh, my kids won't be in school these days, and then next week it's a different amount of days. Like, it don't work like that. And being that we have a big family, is something that Cheyenne mentioned about, which I think you'll be a very great homeschool teacher. Like, it's very that real where we have to think about, okay, now I might have to like put some of the things I have to do aside so I can help teach my siblings because they possibly can't go to school, or they won't even, they're not required to go to school for a certain amount of days. So I just like really don't agree with that. I don't like that at all. And another thing I'm really worried about is now that COVID has happened, people kind of forgot there are other ways to get like sick, as far as like cold, like just having like a mini cold. I'm worried about that also, like how that shows up if someone sneezes. Like, I have allergies and a few of my siblings do too. So like, what does that look like if they sneeze or if they cough? Like, are they going to be targeted by the school? Like, are they going to get in trouble? Like, just all this stuff that's coming to my mind when I have to think about them going to school. And I think it's like very, very, very scary.
Thank you, Evan. Nicole and Janelle, you want to share your thoughts as well?
So regarding measures that my school in particular is taking with COVID-19, they're planning on being more cleanly and like installing like hand sanitizer machines everywhere. But there is a protocol that I don't agree with, which is now residents, they won't be allowed to go into other resident buildings to like visit their friends or anything. And although like I see where that's coming from, the problem comes from commuters and outside visitors who don't live on the college campus. They're allowed to go in and out of these buildings, and I don't agree with this because these people, we don't actually know where they're coming from, where they're going. They're traveling more, whereas residents are staying on the campus. So why wouldn't it make sense that we can't interact with the people who live literally 2 minutes away from us walking, whereas somebody whose commute might be an hour and a half, they can just freely go in and out of the buildings. And it also becomes, we just need basic human interaction, or like group projects or study groups or homework sessions. How is that going to be possible? But we're all attending in-person classes, and we're going to be in the same classrooms picking up food from the same dining hall. So what difference does it really make? And I just feel like it's unfair. And it also becomes the matter of there kind of being no other place to go. A lot of places in the school, like maybe the library and such, it's going to be closed off where students just can't sit there for hours on end, and the place that they're going to have to turn to is their dorm. But now if we can't have that interaction between each other, it's not really fair, and then it'll create a sense of isolation between students. And at that point, it's almost like you would want to stay home if you're just going to be holed up in a dorm room by yourself. And I also think that students should be given that responsibility as college students to clean up after themselves and be responsible on who they're allowing into their living space or not, because there's no one else in that dorm except the student themselves.
Yeah, it's like almost we're paying to be isolated by the institutions that we are in. And although my school has been helpful in some ways, their recent policies surrounding COVID-19 have not been helpful at all, especially since they are creating policies that are not accessible to first generation low income students, so majority Black and brown students. And this is extremely frustrating because we are paying to be here, and our development is just as important, if not more, than any other student. Also, one policy that stood out was students coming from restricted states have to quarantine for 14 days off campus, and my school is only giving them 1,000 in assistance, while the cheapest hotel that they negotiated prices with is around $1,800. So this in no way is enough money for housing, food. In no way is money for the unexpected expenses that come with it. And this weighs a lot on impoverished and low income students because you're already paying other fees, and then having to deal with that off campus quarantine and pay for that as well is too much money. So it's either they do that or they're just not on campus at all. And a lot of students actually have nowhere else to go. So this is very irresponsible of my school. And I believe like it's from them not taking our input as much. I feel like they were supposed to send out more surveys inclusive to low income students, inclusive to first generation students, to see where they are at and to meet them where they are at. They're not meeting us. They're not meeting us where we are at. They're meeting us where it benefits their institution and it brings in money. So yeah, another policy is where we haven't been assigned advisors yet. And a lot of us, we don't have people in our family that went to college, so we don't know how to make schedules. We don't know how to, navigate this student planning, and we don't have advisors. And then we're cutting money from schools and not cutting from NYPD. So where are really the priorities here? Are we prioritizing students? We are not. There's no help moving in. Many facilities on campus are closed, and in my school they even cut the funding that they had to pay for students textbooks. So that's very irresponsible, and I'm worried that this isolation and just this general just disrespect and neglect of low income and first generation students is going to have a huge impact on our mental health and how we navigate on campus. So yeah, my school has specifically lacked equity when it comes to these situations and addressing the gaps. And it seems like you have to place your trauma on display, to complain and beg and be assisted with basic needs like housing and food. I shouldn't have to explain my trauma and my poverty to my school for them to provide me with these things.
Thank you, Janelle. Thank you, Heaven and Nicole as well. And so we have reached our last question for this session. And just want to take some time to shout out all y'all for responding and sharing of yourselves, and again of your brilliance, and offering spaces and opportunities for people to learn from you and to learn with you. And so the last question is also to that end. Youth are a marginalized population, and we don't always talk about it as such, but that is the truth. And as such, what can allies and adults specifically do to best support youth visions for liberation? And we can pivot first to Heaven, and then we can continue talking with other folks who want to add to that.
Allies and adults, the way they can help us is just by not shutting us out, by actually wanting to hear us. I find that, so for example, this town hall, we're able to speak about what we need and what we want, and we actually have people that believe in us and are here for us and are listening to us, but that's very rare. There are many other town hall spaces or panels where it's just okay, we have these young folks speaking because we need the fund, we're gonna get some funds, or it's just oh, it seems like we're doing the work but we're not, or we're rushed, literally we have the time to speak about what we need. We cannot say everything that has been affecting us in under a minute. We can't. Everything that's been affecting us, I'm 20 years old and everything has been affecting me for all my life, and I'm supposed to explain that in a matter of a minute. It does not work like that. And we have these people saying, okay, yeah, we hear y'all, we want to be there for y'all, but what does that actually look like? And I feel like I had a chance I've seen what that looked like, which I've been blessed to, as far as we do a questionnaire, or we just have a talk, a workshop, and we talk about what we need, and then okay, it's implemented, it's right, it's done. Okay, this is what y'all said y'all needed, it's here for y'all, now what do y'all need next? And that's really how we need people to show up now. We need people to also be open to these conversations, be open-minded, take ownership of, before not wanting to be in that space, to listen to young folks and do the things they need to do to support us. If you take ownership of that, we'll move on from there, rather than keep saying, okay, yeah, we're doing our best, we're trying our best to support y'all, but in a way still not doing that. It's just we're being brushed over, and at this point, that cannot keep happening, because as we all said, we're being affected right now. Even though there's stuff being implemented for the future, all these laws and stuff like that, no, it's affecting us to this day. And it affects us even more when people say that they're going to hear us, because now we're coming up with plans, we have solutions, we envisioning what that looks like, and then we project that and it's shut down. So that's just how I feel they can show up, by just listening and really supporting us in what we need.
That was a great answer, Heaven. Just to add on, I wanted to say allies and adults should invest into the youth, invest their time, invest their energy, invest their funds. Allies and adults should encourage and help guide the youth. You shouldn't, shut them out, just like what Heaven was saying earlier. Like, if don't tell a child that, oh no, you shouldn't be a guidance counselor. You should be a doctor or a lawyer so you can make some money. We should listen and open our hearts and minds to the youth because they are the now, they are the future. So I believe that's important. And also, allies and adults should help to host platforms such as this one, where to help equip and empower youth to, speak out and like sort of be like the megaphones for the youth, and help put their ideas and thoughts into the space where most people don't give them that. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And I just want to thank Bro Sis and just like everyone on this team because like I think this is like a beautiful example of what like allyship from adults looks like in LP and just like this summer working for like SLS Power and everything because I was able to like get compensated during a pandemic, but while doing something that I love to do. And like I created lessons and they were not with my facilitators, with folks who taught me. And I think what that is, what we want or what I want is for us to be looked at as co-whatever. Like instead of looking like our facilitators or our supervisors, like let's work together. You are my co-facilitator, you are my co-worker, you are my whatever that looks like in whatever space. And then also providing us with the spaces like this and like SLS and Power and Catalyst, but also not only just giving us the space, but also catapulting what we're saying and helping us put it into action with the privilege that you do have. Also, yeah, like putting our ideas to the forefront, listening to what we're saying and pushing us. Like, no, don't listen to me, listen to them. That's why we're having this town meeting right now. Like, listen to what the youth are saying because they are important, especially for folks who are college age too, like folks like me and Heaven, like for DOS, like we're in a weird age where it's like we're grown-ish, we're kind of adults, we're kind of still youth, but we don't know what we're doing. And so help us navigate that, help us get the resources that we need in order to succeed and grow into our adulthood smoothly and be our mentors, our femtors, be our, facilitators and help us do that. I think that's what we're asking for.
Okay, Cheyenne, you really went off. I agree. I really, really agree. And I think that the best thing that allies and adults need to do to best support youth visions for liberation is to listen, like really, really listen to the youth. We're here, we've been here, we're the ones who'll be coming after y'all. Listen to us and listen to understand what we're talking about. Don't just hear us. Don't say you heard us to say you heard us. Like actually be able to listen to us, to be able to envision and see why we envision what liberation looks like for us. Make room for us to sit at the tables and when and where to make these decisions. How y'all gonna make decisions about the youth without the youth? Make it make sense. See, it doesn't make sense. It never makes sense. Listen to us, don't just hear us. Support us and be behind us on what we call liberation. Stay by us if needed to, and be ready to learn with us.
Wow, that was y'all, yeah, boom, out of the mouth of the youth. And yeah, just like to add on to like what, my folks have been like just saying so amazingly, giving us the means to create these visions. So making sure that our families and communities like have the tools to make sure that like we're being brought up and being, just being brought up with like the best that we can so we can be the best versions of ourselves. Always including youth in conversations of budgeting and support. Like Tito was saying earlier, the fact that, a lot of students, college students did not receive stimulus checks. So just thinking about like really just including youth whenever we're talking about change, because just talking about change. Another thing is undoing and betraying adult supremacy that is both internal and external. So like adult supremacy being that I, the adult person, know everything, X, Y, and Z. and I'm teaching you, you know, so just undoing that notion. And it's everywhere. Even the fact that we use the word childish as an insult. What is that saying about what we think of young people? So yeah, just being a traitor to things that, you know, silence the voice of young people and propped up the voices of adults, because, you know, we definitely have so much to say and know what we dislike and know what is harming us. And lastly, what we're calling you to do is to shake the table and to choose courage over comfort. Because what is comfortable is patriarchal, what is comfortable is transphobic, what is comfortable is racist, anti-immigrant, anti-indigenous, and capitalist. And what is comfortable is the status quo, which is killing us. So choose courage over comfort, and learn from young people who shake the table, who say these brave things, and shake the planet. So just, you know, having that energy, using that young spirit to create and facilitate change, as you can see by everyone in the room. So yeah, just using young people as a guide to choose courage over comfort.
Word. I wish I had the like Caribbean DJ bullhorn right now. That's how I'm feeling, or Cedra to make that sound. And so, yeah, choose courage over comfort and listen to young people to actually hear what their vision is for liberation. That is the charge to you, audience, and folks out in the interwebs. Thank you to our folks who are on this crew rocking with us. Thank you for the folks who set it up, especially Kathy. Thank you folks who've been rocking with us all this time. And shout out to y'all for tuning in and for listening and embarking on a journey of actual meaningful betraying adult supremacy and ageism and starting to shake the world, shake the planet, and fuck shit up and do so in a meaningful way. Pivoting to you to close us out. Thank you.
So peace and blessings to everyone who has shared such beautiful words with us, the voice of the young people. And thank you to everyone who's joined us live on our first Youth Vision for the Future of NYC from Brotherhood Sister Soul. And I just want to take a moment to thank all the facilitators here present, all of our youth facilitators who have guided us through so much this summer. And I also want to thank Bro Sis for making this possible and all our staff behind the scenes. For folks who are just joining us towards the end, Brotherhood Sister Soul has committed to 25 years of youth development and support. And what this translates to is direct activism and organizing in our communities and working with our families, with children and our neighbors in Harlem. Our co-founders, Jason Warwin, and our executive director, Kari Lazar White, were youth activists when they created BroSys 25 years ago. And this was with the intention of building Brotherhood, a network of youth organizers and activists similar to SNCC during the civil rights movement. And they were, as y'all are, reacting to the normal of our time. Young people's rites of passage, when they were defined by violence, BroSys centered and grounded their rites of passage in positivity, community, knowledge, and future. And these values were the reactions to the normal of that time. And as everyone here on this call has said, that normal, we've historically been facing that. And we've been taught that our history has been normal, the history and the normalcy of police brutality, of our essential workers being disposable. And with all these long-term effects of COVID, they don't include the dangerous and lethal normals that we've lived, as y'all have said, for centuries before. I can't say it as well as the young people on this call have said, but I'll try to paraphrase a little bit. But normal has been homeless people who can't self-quarantine. As y'all have highlighted, the issue is not quarantine, it's homelessness, it's shelters, it's unaffordable housing. In reflection, communities of colors, like y'all have said, are being asked to mask for their safety. And this is also an ask that's completely deadly to us. We're charged with caring for our safety while there's a public safety issue because the mask is seen as safety, but our bodies are seen as deviant and they're seen as dangerous. So while billions of dollars are increased literally to the NYPD's bloated budget, and like y'all have said, this has all been supported by elected officials. BroSys has combated these social ills not only by investing in activism in young people, but the 3 campaigns that a lot of folks here have been working on, not just this summer, but for years before. When we talk about the Close Rikers campaign, which is one of our campaigns, this is dedicated to families to decarcerate, to reinvest and rebudget these funds. Because if budgets, like members here have said, are moral budgets, then our question is, what are your priorities? Really, what are your priorities? I see that BroSys's priorities with the 2020 campaign is to combat and battle this violent ageism, this abuse, not only getting police and jails out of our society, but also getting them out of our schools, investing literally in our future. BroSys is also invested in its 3rd campaign of pushing the MRTA, which is the Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act, which again is something that we hope to change so that young people are safer. When young people are the targets of marijuana possession and it's okay for adults, that's something that we're mindful of. So just to say, not to go on too long, that none of these issues are new. Youth have always been at the center and at the front line. Historically, BroSys has been doing it for the last 25 years, beginning with our co-founders, Kari and Jason. And that also began with the love that their families gave them. So I just want to take a moment to congratulate all of you here present and BroSys for its 25 years dedicated to this activism and starting with Kari and Jason being young people at the front line, and all of y'all continuing that legacy. These systems have been terrorizing people of color, LGBTQ and trans communities, indigenous people, and differently able-bodied people, and especially young people. So thank y'all for your work in reminding us to divest from the police, to invest in resources that lead to youth jobs, to mental health support beyond what SYP is able to give, things that avoid young people ending up arrested, prevention and reinvestment in our community and in our mental health, hopefully giving young college people access to books, to book money, to tuition, to groceries, just to be able to be independent. So with all of that said, to folks who are watching us and tuned in, please donate to the people who are doing the work. Donate to Brotherhood Sister Soul, who has constantly shown and been a leader in advocating for mental health of young people, for housing stability, for students, to battle food insecurity, to get young people employed and be able to take care of their family, to have a restorative culture instead of a policing culture. For everyone who's a fan of our work, please, or just joining us, please subscribe, follow us, like us on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. Our social media handle is BroSys512. BroSis 512. And please share this work. Share it with a friend, sit with a family. Let's get the word out and really center ourselves in what these young people have given us, these blessings, to remember that adults and allies should invest in youth, and let's try to walk together with more courage over comfort. So thanks again, BroSys, for this opportunity, and I'll pass it back to Marsha.
Thank y'all. Thank you, Abe, for closing us out. Shout out to all the people who have walked this route before us, be that Kari and Jason, or Cedra, or Wendy and Sylvia, and Susan, like all the folks who have been here, all the past LP folks, all the folks who are on this call, all the folks who gave you gems and blessings with their words and brilliance, from Brandel to Cheyenne to Ferdaz to Fode to Hisela to Heather to Janelle to Maya to Nicole to Tita. And shout out to the crew who are here to facilitate, Abe, Simone, and France, and I. Share the word, amplify youth voices, and elevate young people to positions of power and to positions of leadership, because we are nothing without them. Take care, y'all.